So good evening, good morning, where you are, or good afternoon, wherever you are. So let's start. Very quick intro. Rohit has said enough. I'm Dinesh Sharma. I live in England. I'm a agile consultant, mentor, coach, trainer, depending on what people need from me. I've been working with large scale product development for almost like 20 odd years now. I have worked in various domains, so travel, defense, banking, aerospace, gambling, government. I'm also a life coach. I'm just about to finish my master's in coaching, and I'm also, as Rohit said, I'm a certified large scale Scrum trainer as well. So the big question, has Agile given you agility? Now, before we answer this question, I think we need to have a different question. What is Agile, right? Because whenever I have asked anyone, normally, especially with consultants, what you get is a lot of information, but it's useless, right? So often people talk about Jira, Scrum, Squads, Wave, you name it. They would talk about either a technique, they would talk about a framework, method, style, right? But nobody would answer what exactly is being agile means. So they talk about a lot of, if you ask, say, hey, are you following any agile, or is your company agile? And they would say, yeah, we do daily stand-up. Oh yeah, we use Jira, we create tickets. So you would get that lot of, I call it blah 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 blah. And if you really want to understand agile way of working, or agile, what does agile mean, being agile mean, the closest you can get is Agile Manifesto, right? And in pure sense that probably all of you know that it's nothing new that I'm sharing with you, is a narrative around agile, 4 values, 12 principles, right? But there's an interesting story behind Agile Manifesto also. Some of you may have heard it, but I heard directly from one of the signatory of Agile Manifesto that when they were discussing, when they met in 2001 and then created Agile Manifesto, when they come up with the 17 people came up and then said that what should we create, and when they created this manifesto, and they have not yet named it as an agile, right? So they had actually 3 words that they finally pin up to: flexible, agile, and adaptive. That's what 3 words. And when they kind of dot voted, they had adaptive as the first choice, agile as the second choice, and flexible as the third choice. But then they realized that being adaptive the first choice, the guy who actually organized the whole movement or this meeting itself, Jim Highsmith, has a company called Adaptive Software Development. And they thought that if we call it adaptive, then it will be unfair commercial advantage to Jim Highsmith. And that's where they agreed to call it Agile Manifesto. But actually what they meant was being adaptive, right? And I think that's what a lot of people do not realize, or organization rather do not realize, that the whole movement of this agile movement has come so that organization can be adaptive. And there's a very nice definition around adaptability or agility. I try to use more word now, adaptability rather than agility, because of the same reason. I mean, the whole agile word itself has lost meaning because it has been misused and abused by especially big consulting company. So this is the closest definition I have found from Craig Lerman, one of the co-founder of Large Scale Scrum. It's basically it's the ability to move with quick and easy grace, be nimble, adaptable, and change faster and cheaper than your competition can. So you become an organization where change comes free. You do not have to have a change program. You become such an adaptable organization that if the market moves and your product wants to move, your organization wants to move, it's just the ability to adapt to the new situation. Especially the world we live in is very uncertain, and with that high uncertainty, high uncertain world, you cannot be fixed. You have to have that capability to carry on adapting to the new challenges and then move there. The organization, the human being has been survived because they have been naturally adaptable to the situations. Now, if your organization wants to achieve that adaptability, your explicit goal of your organization should be adaptable, right? If you do not have that goal, then nobody would talk about. Otherwise, they would talk about frameworks, methodology, techniques, tools. But your explicitly goal should be adaptable, and anything you do, it has to have purpose. Not being adaptable for the sake of it, but basically it's in the service of delivering highest value to your users, to your customers, and to your business, right? Mainly to your customers, right, or users. You're always working on that. You are not creating a 3 months program and then delivering that. That's not adaptiveness, right? Adaptiveness is continuously basically looking, and in the nutshell, it comes down to inspecting, adapting, and delivering, right? So it's basically and that is continuous focus of that. Whatever you deliver, you inspect that, has it added the value to your customer? Have you learned something new about, right? That way, do you need to change your product? And then you adapt to that also, because if you are only inspecting and not adapting, then you are not you don't bring agility in your organization or your teams as well. And to look all three words, you may have heard it many times: inspect, adapt, and deliver. What does it mean? It's basically so what does inspectability means? It's basically inspectability brings learning to your organization, learning to you. It's a reflection, right? Human being reflects, so that organization has to reflect also if they want to learn something new. You have to learn from market, you have to learn from customer what you have delivered, or learn from the feedback and see what insight you gain about it, right? And then you have to also give that ability for your team so that they can inspect as well. So what it means also is that to bring the inspectability, you have to bring your teams closer to the people who are using your products. And so the users of the product or the customer of the product, if they do not directly hear from them, or if they do not directly inspect the market, what they're going to build, they will always be hearing second-hand information from someone else. And then you know that the Chinese whisper happens as well. So you have to give your teams ability so that they can really inspect from there, from directly where the game is happening also. And same way, you need to have adaptability and then ability to adapt, right? So that you can change the direction if it needed. You basically wants to get that feedback and then understand what needs to be done next. Either you carry on or you persevere, or you need to make a pivot with what you have learned, new information as well. And then what you need to do is basically, what adaptability is, that you build that adaptability in your product, and then you can deliver also, right? And then ability to deliver also. So you're basically focusing on three things. One is that organization bringing the team that are building the product and the customer who was using product together, so that they can inspect what they have done. But they are also inspecting by delivering something new. Customer needed something this, you have a hypothesis, you deliver, and then quickly realize whether your hypothesis was right or wrong, right, that way. But you need to do it with speed also. And then I think that's why I like this metaphor too, because if you quickly releasing stuff and then getting that feedback, it's not that you are taking 3 months or 6 months or even a month to deliver something, because then your feedback cycle is very, very long feedback cycle. So these three things are very, very important if you really, really wants to bring agility in your organization, right? And I also talk about building blocks that helps you to bring the inspectability, adaptability, and deliverability in your organization. If you really wants to build your organization, adaptive organization, you have to move away from traditional projects to more products. And also, the reason is that project has like the whole point of focus of project is to get things delivered, right? It's not about inspecting or adopting. It's basically understand what you do and then deliver it. And then the assumption with the project always is that you know what you're going to deliver because you have a scope. You know how you're going to deliver because you understand every technicality also. Nothing would change in between, right? Often, because then it comes like a change request and scope release also. And you don't learn anything because once the project is over, then you move on to something else. Where product is a construct where you hypothesis that you test the market all the time and then building those feature that really, really needed. The other part of project is also that all your requirements have the same priority because you have to deliver everything in your projects, right? So moving from projects to product, bring that adaptability in your organization. The other very major factor that at least I have seen is that because this project to product, probably every consultant trainer would say that, yeah, you need to move from project to product. But what that people do is that they start calling everything product. So even if they have a UI framework, they will call a product. If they have a component in the overall product, they will call that as a product because anything they are working is a product now, right? And then that actually brings that issue of not being customer centric, but very technology centric, right? And so that's why you have to move away from a smaller product definition to a few broader products. So that actually reduces number of product. Often in the organization, I've seen that you move to just one product and then you have just one product backlog that gets prioritized and then teams are working over that. One of the gaming gambling company I was working, they used to have lots of smaller product. And then when I discuss it with the CIO, especially business focused CIO, and he would say that basically our product is that giving that online experience of gaming to our customers. It wasn't about like a payment is a product. It wasn't like a onboarding is a product. And that's why you have to create a customer centric product definition also for your customers. Also, moving away from specialist roles to team-based organization design. Specialist role basically are a single specialist often, and then you have lots of handoffs. So for example, you have a team of say analyst, then you have a team of developer, then you have a team of testers, and then you have this game of one person handing over to another. And then again, focus actually becomes more getting the stuff done, or I am done now, rather than focusing on what actually customer wanted, and then are we learning from the quicker delivery there also. Often I have seen that these specialist roles are created in an organization based on resource thinking. They think that people are resources. I mean, resources, if you see, are like printer is a resource. The only thing it can do is printing, nothing else. That's what resource thinking, that's what like a commodity thinking is. Whereas people, human beings can learn, right? And people think that you must be specialist in one and only one thing to be very effective. But you basically, people don't realize that people have this inherent ability to learn more things, right? So giving people, building this cross-functional teams, and then giving them problem to solve so that they can solve problem. We work in a more like a knowledge worker space rather than very factory space, right? So you have to make sure that you are building your organization based on people and also on teams as well. Also, organizing around technology to organizing around customer value. So I have seen, like I said earlier, especially with this specialist role, people would have, even though they would have cross functional team, but they would still be organizing around technology. So you would have a front end team, you would have back end team, you would have database team or data separate area. And then again, you have a issue of managing dependencies. Then you would have more people who are trying to coordinate across multiple teams. And these people are not actually involved in the work. Their job is just to manage people or manage the delivery and then run around and then get the work done, right? You would have like a project manager, even teams that are organized around technology are more, Scrum Master becomes more like a project manager because they are trying to coordinate around that. So it's a very, very important factor that your teams are more customer-centric teams, so that they are hearing everything from customer, direct from their end customer, not like fake customer in between, like, oh, I have a front-end team and back-end team. Front-end team is my customer now, or back-end team is my customer. No, the real customer who are actually paying for your product, right? And then organize around that also. And then they deliver end-to-end value. They're not doing a small part of it and then handing over to a backend team or database team, and then later on somehow believe that magically delivery would happen, right? Also, even if you have a customer-centric team, to make sure that that these teams are working together well as well. There shouldn't be anyone separate from the team or outside the team who's trying to improve the cross-team cooperation. Because again, I have seen in many organizations that the teams are, so if you, for example, if you're following Scrum, a lot of people think that I'm just part of this Scrum team. So I like a one team Scrum kind of culture you would see. Whereas a culture should be that if to deliver a customer value, 4 teams need to work together. They work like a one Scrum team rather than one team Scrum. So moving away from one team Scrum to one Scrum team that work together, so that you don't have to, there's no one outside who should come and coordinate among yourself. You should be working and collaborating together. And then that's why it is important that if you organize your teams by customer value, that means priority is same for all the teams, and then they would naturally collaborate with each other. I normally call it this kind of, people call about managing dependency, and I also say that there are 2 kinds of dependencies, right? Synchronous dependencies and asynchronous dependencies. Synchronous dependencies are something that I depend on you and you depend on me. So same time we are dependent on each other, and that fosters us to collaborate with each other, right? So if I depend on you and you depend on me, we will naturally collaborate so that we can get the stuff done. Whereas asynchronous dependencies are where I depend on you, but you don't depend on me, or vice versa. That way, if I depend on you and you don't depend on me, you may have a different priority than I have. I'm stuck now because I'm dependent on you. And for you, the dependency may have a lower priority. You may be working on something else. And then I just get stuck, right? And then the organization dynamics happens, and then politics happens, and then people come in and then try to manage that dependency as well, which just brings the wrong dynamics into the organization. So it's very, very important that in organization, nobody can remove dependencies. Try to understand that. What you need to do is you need to basically amplify dependency so that it's the same priority for everyone. There's a synchronous dependency, and it fosters the cross-team cooperation automatically. Right, that way. Also, from technical point of view, you want to coordinate to integrate. You want to coordinate through integration rather than coordinate to integrate. And it goes back to the dependencies, right? You, in a traditional product development, you would basically, if you have front end, back end, you just going on their own space, where what you want to do is basically you are continuously integrating your work so that you are coordinating, because if you break something, you would have faster feedback, and then you learn from that feedback, and then you do something about it. So continuous integration is, with continuous integration, you have other XP practices come, test-driven development, refactoring, continuous refactoring, that comes in. But if you are not going to continuously integrate, your feedback that either you have broken something or someone else has broken something is very late. And then the late feedback, we all know that is very expensive. Whether that is a technology feedback, whether the feedback from coming from customer, because when we saw that from project to product thing in the project, feedback is in the end when you deliver something, and then customer say, this is not what I wanted, or if I knew you're going to deliver something like this, I would have asked something else, right? So that's a late feedback, and late feedback is the most expensive thing in at least the software industry that we work in, right? So we want to have that quick feedback from the people also. So if you really want to achieve adaptability in your organization, you have to think about organization design, build organization design around people. You need to think about the technical excellence in your organization, building capability in your teams by letting them work directly with customers or users of the product, where you are directly hearing from them, and what it does is with the teams, that it actually create an empathy for the users, right, or for the customer, why they want something, right? And also it removes the assumptions that normally people creates in their specs that the customer wants this. There's a very good example around that, or a nice story around that. I used to work, I was coaching in Argos in their digital space. So I was leading that digital transformation in Argos as well. And then once we had like a digital day, our chief digital officer organized it, digital day, and we went to Milton Keynes and Kedon. We booked that big hall there, right? And we had around 18 teams, cross-functional teams. When I say cross-functional, not just technology, but people from stores, marketing, sales, production, everybody was there, right, from studio. And then we had 18 teams, and we had 18 different customer personas, right? And we gave those personas to those teams, and we said that, hey, these are the persona, and you have to build your assumption on that. What would they be look like? What would they be? What would be their spending habits? What kind of people they are, right? And the team that I was part, we had a lady. She was, I think, 67 years old, retired, ex-head teacher from a school, and living in somewhere suburb in Milton Keynes. And then the team was discussing basically that, oh, she's retired, she would be not very, she was a head teacher, so probably she's not very high on technology, and she probably was spending time with her grandchildren. So we created that kind of persona, right? And because we were not directly interacting with that person, we were interacting with persona. And then the smart thing our chief digital officer has done is that those personas were actually real people, and they were there in the hall, and then he invited everyone, and then the lady that the persona we had, she came, and when we show her the persona and what we have picture we have picked up from that persona, 75% or 77% assumption we had were like wrong assumption. She was such a high tech, even at that age, she was a very high tech user. She knew about all the gadgets. She had pretty much all the gadgets. She said that she's one of the first person, her own house, like on her family, to buy something that will come in the new gadget. She said that, in fact, I teach my teenagers how to use those gadgets. So our whole assumptions were wrong. And that's what happens when you do not directly deal with a real customer. You do not understand them. You do not have empathy for them, right? And since then, my own belief in just working on personas has changed tremendously. I like to try to be, or help organization try to be closer, or teams to be closer to the customer, so that they directly really listening from the people, they understand what exactly the challenge that the customer or users are facing, so that we can solve the real problem, right? Rather than just taking a spec and delivering it. Because the most motivated team I have seen are the one that directly working with customers, that's directly achieving something, because they have a sense of accomplishment, that they have made someone's life easy, they have add value to someone's life. I think that's where the motivation come for those things. So I take these design principle whenever I go in an organization and coach, and build around that to say that, and it covers pretty much most of the stuff that an organization needs. And I'm not saying these are the only design principles, there are others you can add, but these are the very high level principles that I use. Say that, hey, are you working on product? And then is your product definition is a broader definition rather than a narrow definition? Are we building the cross-functional teams, right? Are we investing in people so that people can learn more things? Teams are working directly with customers so they can learn new things, right? Not only about the customer, but then the technology also, right? Is the right thing we are doing for our customer? And organize them around more customer centricity rather than just technology. And you may need like few teams that should be exception to organize around technology for your specific content. That's okay, but your majority team should be around customer value. And then also making sure that you create that culture that by design, that it fosters the cross team cooperation, collaboration rather than competition with each other, right? And following technical excellence, so that you are getting continuous feedback about the stuff that you're building. Also, you're getting the feedback from your system as well, from your product also. So these are the things that I believe that brings agility, adaptability in the organization, rather than any other thing. I mean, if you do not have that, you can use less, you can say, if you can use Scrum, Kanban, anything you do it, I think you would have the same frustration that, hey, it doesn't work, nothing is changing. And then you go back to old, and then people on the higher or organizations start thinking this agility thing doesn't work, right? Or we are different, right? It may have worked for a small web team, but not for us. But we know that, I mean, most of the organization now are technical organization. They basically wants to be known as technical organization. Even banks are getting disrupted, big banks by fintech, and then they are moving towards more technology as well. So that's what I at least believe that brings the adaptability and agility, rather than just following a framework or methodology or some techniques. So that's me. Now we can take questions. Rohit.
Yeah, thank you, Dinesh. That was quite good. So let me go through the questions now. So there's a question: in your experience, how have the encouraged a flow, speed to market, focus in teams?
So in your experience, how have you encouraged
I think probably how you have encouraged a flow, focus in teams.
Yeah, so I normally use two things. I use queuing theory, and queuing theory is a good way to understand how queue works, right? So what I try to do is basically I try to remove queues before I manage them, and that's how I want to create flow. So for example, for me, the flow is very easy if you have the right organization design. If you are working with a customer, and then you have team working together, and then they are just delivering stuff, right? What I have often have seen people creating flow is then when they have lots of handoffs and they try to manage those queues, right? So in one of the organization, we did a value stream mapping, and they used to have to build a website. They used to have a 20 process step. Do this, and rather than managing that, when we had that value stream, and then we said that this is the first time they had actually seen end-to-end something working, how they build something end-to-end product. And then they start to squeeze it. And then in the end, we had a 4-step process. And that's where the flow happens way quicker than actually you have a very lengthy flow steps.
Okay, thank you. Next question. What do you think of the contribution of the whole hype around product strategy for being adaptive?
Okay, so the question is, what do you think the contribution of the hype around product strategy for being adaptive? How do lean IT system overlap with the original goal of adaptability, agility? I think if you go back to the lean way of thinking, it has always been around being that adaptability. I mean, the whole agility movement has come from lean, right? Now, strategy is one thing, but validating your strategy is second thing. So you need to be adaptive to validate whether you are on the right track or not. That's why it is very important that you have a vision, but also believe that that is just a vision, right? And then by building stuff, the only way you can get the feedback is by building stuff and giving your customer the product early so that you can learn from that, right? That's why it is important that you must have a vision, but do not get stuck with vision. It's not like if you build, they would come mentality. It's basically continuously evolving your strategy also based on the feedback that you get, right? So I think the goal of adaptability was always that, right? Building something quickly, giving to the customer, getting the feedback. And that's what I meant by inspecting, adapting, and delivering stuff, right? And that's why it is important. The quicker you do it, the quicker you get the feedback. Otherwise, what happens, I have seen in the organization, they spend so much money before they get the feedback. And sometimes they say that, oh, we have spent too much money, like a HS2 project, we can't stop it, right? But then you get very quickly feedback whether the product that you are building is the right product. Or sometimes I have seen that the product that was initially started with the vision, they completely change it and they still become very successful. It's just that the hypothesis was proven wrong, but it gave them a new learning. And then Facebook, YouTube are a good example anyway of that kind of strategy.
So, sorry, Dinesh, I don't know how much time we have, but I would like to precise my question. Sorry, I mixed up two questions by asking them one after the other. My first one is the hype around product strategy. Sorry for being unfair in my questioning. You know what's going around it as the shift from project to product is going to solve everything, and then we're going to get agile. What do you think about this particular point with regard to your original statement and understanding of the ideas behind adaptability? I'm talking manifesto.
Yeah, so I think product, as I said earlier, also you should, when you build a product, you need to have a vision, right? If you are talking about strategy, is basically how we going to build a product or how we going to launch it. These all are hypotheses. Take it this way, and if you have that hypothesis culture in your mind, you will always be thinking both sides of it. What if it is wrong? What if it is right? Right? That is very important, and then only way you can prove or disprove your hypothesis by delivering it, right? So it's very important that you should have a vision, have a strategy, but making sure that you're not spending too much time on that also, because you know that all are hypotheses, right? And especially and also be aware that people have strong, but everybody, including me, you all, right? We are biased. So every time we try to build a product, and then the first thought comes in the mind, we try to stick to that because that our bias make us do that also. By quickly delivering, we can disturb that bias or prove that bias was right or wrong, or there was a bias of that also. Have I answered your question?
Yeah. Thank you. And
okay.
It was about how does the original idea of adaptability, not what we understand today under Agile, you made your point clear and I agree. The original idea of adaptability, how does it overlap with lean systems in general? I'm not talking lean manufacturing. I would like to avoid.
Okay. Yeah. So again, lean was a concept. Again, lean came from, so if you know the origin of lean, it's nothing what Toyota used to do, right? Some researcher from MIT went there, they understood Toyota production system, and they started calling it lean, right? So that was the originator of lean. And again, understand lean a lot of people, when you talk about lean, they talk about waste, right? They talk about other stuff. The very simpler understanding of lean is if you see the two pillar of lean is respect for people and continuous improvement. That's the two pillar of lean. Now, these are two powerful pillar of lean. If you go further, deeper, understand that. Respect for your respect for people means respect your customer. One of the angle of that also. Respect your employee as well. So when you respect for customer, you want to create a product that they can use easily. What you're saying, don't trouble your customer. So build a product that's so intuitive to use that they don't need to read a manual to use it, right? If they are using a manual to use your product, a lot of things has gone in between. So and same way, continuous improvement, keep improving your product, make sure that you're getting that feedback, what you need to improve, and then you improve. That's the two things. Waste is just one part of continuous improvement, right? Reducing waste. But the two main pillars are that respect for people and continuous improvement. And that's where the adaptability comes anyway. Right.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, how do you communicate to your team not to focus on specialist role, but focus on the customer value when management is more focused on seeing the velocity of the team is increasing?
Okay. I think that comes from a wrong understanding of the. So how do you communicate to your team not to focus on? So I think team, if their team directly working with customer, right, the whole team, then I think in my experience, what I found is that they do not talk about a specialist role anyway. They may have a specialist role, but they would think that, hey, how do we help our customer to achieve this goal? Right? So it automatically is. But if you remove or distance them from customer, then what would happen is that in a team, if there's a BA, they said, oh, it's my responsibility to talk to the customer, they would go and speak. Developers say, okay, I'm delivering what you have asked me. Tester would say, I'm testing what we have discussed, right? And that is a specialism. But when they all directly hearing from customer, they're talking about the customer, not about their role itself. And this is the product of your organization design. If you are very far from your customer, then you would. So this is more systemic issue than actually your team issue, right? And this is why, I mean, I'm one of the best trainer. When we train people or when we coach people, we use a lot of system thinking and system dynamics. People should be able to draw what they see. They should be able to model using system modeling. And then they would understand that what problem happens when you create team and then set an expectation in your organization design that only certain people can talk to the customer. I mean, a lot of time people are not even talking to the customer. They're talking to the proxy of the customer itself, right? Like product owner would go and speak with someone who has spoken with someone else. They're not talking to the real user. The whole point of bringing in agility was that, I mean, one of the principle behind Agile Manifesto is that our business, that time they said business and IT need to work together, right? So I think that's why, so that it's more organization design issue than actually a team issue. It may reflect in the team, but if you see systemic issue, it's more towards systemic issue.
Thank you. I think we are 45. I think we can take one more question, Dinesh, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
So the last question, I think that's probably I want you to ask as well. What do you think of the impact on agility of large method frameworks like SAFe or LESS?
Okay, so
I didn't mean I refer to big monolithic ones like SAFe. LESS is very different. It's much more.
I'm just saying, yeah. So
okay, yeah. I mean, it's never good to bash anything, but but see, I do not have a very good experience of SAFe. I have seen, I mean, if I say that I have not seen any successful implementation of SAFe, at least with my own eyes, so I won't be able to say anything. Even though the bank that I'm working, so let me say this way. So the bank I'm working is apart from the department I'm working, we are doing LESS there, and the rest of the bank is doing SAFe, and we are LESS is the department that I am working, not because of LESS is the best performing department in the entire bank. right? So problem with the any large framework, be it SAFe or DAD or anything else, right, is that if you do not understand the whole concept of adaptability, which basically we have discussed today, then these all are just methods, right? Frameworks. In fact, in the with the less of also, we don't say that you do less. You shouldn't do less. You should generate your own insight. What is right thing for your own organization to bring adaptability in your company? I mean, even in the less transformation, we talk very little about less. It's not about, I mean, large scale Scrum is Scrum. That's it. That's what it is, right? It's not a special Scrum or different Scrum, right? But what we basically teach is that we generate insight in the organization so that they can themselves realize that what is right thing for them. And that is what that's where the adaptability comes, not by just following a method. And we say that less is a starting level framework. So you build, the main difference we talk about SAFe versus less is, in SAFe, they say you got a big thing, you can tailor it down. We say, no, start with very small that works for organization, and you build up your own framework top of that. Because, and same thing is a lot of organization trying to copy paste Spotify. Just because it has worked for Spotify doesn't mean it will work for you. It's mostly copy paste. And when I say that the inspiration of Agile has come from Lean, right? It's not about, because what happened that IT or software development is a very new engineering field, if you want to call it engineering, take it this way. So initially they adopted from civil engineering. That's why if you see that the terminology we used to use build is come from civil engineering, right? Or deploy, all those things come from very civil engineering field. And then later on we learn from manufacturing from Toyota. But if you learn if you read Deming's Thought Out of Crisis book or other books, you would see that those principles are still very much apply in IT as well, even though in the lean manufacturing, the organization were building the same product again and again. Whereas in the IT, we build completely different product, right? So our challenges are different. But I think values still has come from lean.
Cool. Thank you very much. I think that concludes our question and answer session. So thank you, Dinesh. That was really great.
Thank you very much. No problem.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dinesh. That was really good.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
I'm going to stop the meeting, and thank you very much, everyone. So I'll see you in the next one. So next one is in August 11th. So please join. RSVP to the event. It's on the Meetup group. So cool. Thank you, Dinesh. Thanks again.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thanks, Rohit. Thank you, Dinesh.
Cheers now.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.